Here's your shot at winning $1,000. Text the national keyword bonus right now to 95819. That's BONUS to 95819. We'll text you back to confirm your entry. Data and messaging rates may apply. Please don't text and drive. It's 5K a day on WMAL. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:07 this Tuesday morning. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks to Andrew Langer and Bethany Mandel for sitting in for me yesterday as I took a bit of a mental health break for some family time that was much needed after this year. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka. Patrice is here on a Tuesday. Good morning,
Yeah,
Patrice.
filling in for Julie. Julie's taking a little break. Yeah.
Coming up at 7:35, Mary Margaret Olahan, and at 8:05, Joe Concha will join us. Award-winning journalist here in Washington, D.C. for WJLA ABC7 is Nick Minock. He finally caught up with Abigail Spanberger running for governor and asked a very simple question, very directly, a very clear question. Take a listen. This is what the question was, cut 20.
Do you support biological males who say they're women using women's locker rooms and bathrooms and competing in women's sports?
That's right. No question about the law, no question about court cases, no question about current pending legal battles between school systems and Title IX and the Department of Education. Do you support this policy? Here's Abigail Spanberger's answer, the woman who wants to be governor, cut 21.
The argument is, the assessment is, there needs to be much clearer guidance in terms of what is an executive order's binding assessment of Title IX versus what has been a decision of a court.
Well, actually, and that's just a truncated version of the answer that was even a little bit more, well, in my opinion, rambly and nonspecific, and certainly not a direct answer to the direct question. So here is that reporter, Nick Minock, again of WJLA, joining us now. And first of all, Nick, listen, thank you for being dogged here and continuing to ask this very simple question. And Nick, good morning. This is relevant because there are a lot of issues pending right now in Northern Virginia in particular that, should Abigail Spanberger become governor, will have to face. Her insight and her position on these issues is incredibly relevant, I would think.
Right. And parents want to know, where does she stand? I mean, we've been hearing from parents for 3-4 years now about this issue in Loudoun County, Fairfax County. And this is news right now in this election cycle, right? Yeah. You've got 5 Northern Virginia school systems who are defending these policies. They are risking federal funding to defend them. The U.S. Department of Education, the Trump administration, says they violate Title IX and protection for women. Yeah. And so what would she do as governor? You know, if I had an opportunity to ask her another question, I would ask her, so let's say she's elected, and these 5 school systems lose their federal funding. Is she going to have the Virginia General Assembly make up that funding gap? So there's a lot of important questions to ask her here. Unfortunately, she dodged the question.
She did, and then you followed up and said, but do you support the policy? And she ignored you. She moved on. She left. You had a couple of different other shots. You were sort of shouting the way. She completely ignored you. Have you heard back from the campaign at all for further clarity on the Congresswoman's position on this?
No, and it was interesting when they were arranging this press gaggle, right? So there were a bunch of reporters there right after her rally, Get Out the Vote rally on the first day of early voting. And her staff comes over to us reporters and says, hey, we're going to call on individual reporters. And usually at press scrums, you just shout your questions. That's what I was prepared to do. And after they said that, I said, well, wait a minute. Are you going to call on me? And they hesitated. They said, well, we're going to go to a radio station and then we're going to go to local TV. I said, well, are you going to call on me to ask a question? And at this point, they realized I was videotaping them. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay, we'll call on you. And I said, good, because if you don't, I'm just going to ask my question. And you could just tell they were angered, frustrated by that. It just shows that her staff, it seems, is trying to protect her from answering these questions. Because as you recall, I think I was on WMAL some time ago. We were talking about how we sent these questions in writing to Spanberger's campaign. They sent back a statement that did not answer the question directly. And you see that play out, too, face-to-face.
Nick, switching gears just a little bit, but still on the topic of what's happening in schools, you were reporting on a story in Fairfax County where schools in the county are actually seeking to sue a victim of sexual assault in schools for $250,000. Apparently, she's a woman who came forward saying that in middle school she was sexually assaulted by other students. She reported the incident to school officials and administrators, and they did nothing. And now the schools are actually suing this victim. Tell us about this story and what kind of impact it could have on future victims.
Right. So this young woman who is now 26 years old, she was 12 years old when she said she was sexually assaulted as a middle school student, as a seventh grader at Rachel Carson Middle School. So she later on, I think she was 24 or 23 when she began to sue FCPS, sued them because of how FCPS handled her sexual assault case. And FCPS hired some of the best attorneys money can buy. They have the resources for it, being a multi-billion-dollar institution. And it was quite the sight to see when reporting on this, because you walked into the courtroom, and on the right side of the courtroom, you saw FCPS and all their attorneys. There's like over 30 attorneys, it looked like. And then on the other side, you had the plaintiff who was suing the school system, and she had like 5 attorneys. So, FCPS has the resources to outgun anybody who goes against them, she says. Anyways, the jury decided in favor of the school system.
Okay.
And now FCPS is turning around and asking a judge to order the victim to pay them $250 to cover some of the legal fees. So that's the latest right now. The judge is taking it under advisement, so we're just waiting for an opinion from the judge now. But the victim says this will have a chilling effect on sexual assault survivors who may come forward in the future and may decide to try to hold the school system accountable.
Nick Minock is our guest, WJLA reporter, and we're talking about a lot of things going on in the gubernatorial race here and in the Northern Virginia school systems. I got to back to this question and answer in exchange with Abigail Spanberger. She clearly did not answer your question the first time, and then you kept repeating and following up, and she just ignored you and smiled. There were other reporters there, Nick, and I've seen this happen before when another reporter will pick up on a question that a politician sort of avoids and says, well, listen, I just want to follow up on Nick's question because you didn't really give a clear answer. Can you elaborate, please? Does that happen ever when covering Abigail Spanberger? Because it seems like that would be a really smart thing for a journalist to do.
Well, that was my hope, because when I tried to ask a follow-up immediately after she gave her answer, well, how do you personally feel is what I asked her. What do you personally think about these policies? Her staff kind of freaked out. Her staff, their hands were shaking and like, oh no, we got to go to WUSA Channel 9. And I looked at the reporter and I said, well, maybe you want to ask the question.
Oh, you did?
And he kind of laughed, and he, I think, asked a question about Jimmy Kimmel.
Wow. All right. Well.
So that's what's happening right now.
By the way, that's pretty hilarious considering Kimmel is regularly is on your station, and here's somebody on a competing station wanting to ask a question about a show on your station, Nick. That instead of just following up on an issue that affects Virginians.
I'll tell you what. Looking back at the footage of the Q&A with Spanberger, when I asked the question about the bathroom locker room in sports issue, the reporters and the gaggle, they were just wide-eyed. I think they also wanted to know where she stood on this issue. Perhaps maybe they didn't want to get into it with Abigail. They didn't want to be the one because they think maybe she'll win, and then they want to have a good relationship with the future governor. But that's not our job. We are in a top 10 market where we need to practice capital J journalism. We need to ask important questions for our viewers. I'd like to see more news stations do that.
Amen, brother. And as long as you keep doing your job there, Nick Minock, that's what the J in WJLA is going to stand for, journalism. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Always good to talk with you. Keep it up. Keep pressing.